Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by MMA World Series of Fighting and Glory Kickboxing ring announcer Tim Hughes. Tim, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for doing it. Tim, I wanted to keep the focus of this interview on you and your career, but last Friday night's World Series of Fighting 3 card was such a great event that I feel that we need to talk about that first. That was a phenomenal event. There were great fights, there were finishes, there was a lot of heart being shown in the cage. It was a great card. What was it like being there live? Because I had a great time just watching it on TV on NBC Sports Network. So what was it like being there live?
Well, I can tell you, one of the great things about being a ring announcer for any of these events is that you have the best seat in the house, obviously. You're sitting cage side, so that part of it's always good. But Ray Sefo and Ali and the entire group at World Series of Fighting said from the very beginning that what they wanted to do was put on good fights and give fighters opportunities that maybe they would not otherwise have, and I think they've lived up to that. We've had 3 events, obviously, and this one was no exception to the other 2. This one was fantastic with lots of great action. The crowd wasn't so happy with the beer bomb fight, and sometimes crowds get a little antsy when there's a lot of groundwork being done, but hard fought, every fight, and great fight, so I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Definitely. Now, as you look back on that event and some of the other events that you've done in the past, when you get done with the show, will you go back and watch the footage and, grade yourself, evaluate yourself on what you did and how you performed on a night? Oh,
absolutely, and I think everybody does that. The fighters do that. Bas Rutten does that when he does his color commentary after an event. That's how fighters improve. That's how announcers improve. That's how I feel like I improve, is to take a look at what worked and what didn't work, and maybe how you could do things differently, streamline things a little bit. One of the difficulties, and I'm sure you've heard this from other guys, but one of the difficulties in doing live events is that there are a lot of unpredictable parts to a fight event, obviously. How long the fights are going to go, if there's an injury, what that does to your timing, and you've got 2 hours window from NBC Sports to get it done. So keeping everything concise and knowing where you need to be, when you need to be there, is a big part of that. So absolutely, I watch the footage when I get home and grade my own work.
Now, going forward, this Saturday, you're going to be at the Glory 9 kickboxing card that's going to be taking place in New York. How much are you looking forward to this experience? Glory, they're doing big things in the world of kickboxing. We have a very exciting card going on June 22nd. A couple of World Series of Fighting vets competing in that Grand Slam light heavyweight tournament. Tyrone Spong, Dustin Jacoby, a lot of great talent in that tournament. How much are you looking forward to this card?
I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to this for a lot of reasons. First of all, it is Glory's maiden voyage here in the United States. It's in New York City. It's happening in a gorgeous venue, the Hammerstein Ballroom, right there in Manhattan. So there are a lot of reasons to be excited about it, not the least of which, of course, is the caliber of athlete that's going to be on there. And everybody, I think, in the world is talking about Tyrone Spong coming off of his knockout of Bonyaski in London. And this will be my 4th event with Glory, and I don't think there's a better produced show in the world right now if you're looking at an international basis. When you walk in and see, and it's going to be interesting to me, by the way, to see how they do the production setup for the Hammerstein, because in Istanbul, Milan, and Tokyo, the 3 shows I've done so far, they put up a video board that literally goes one side of the arena to the other, and you can't help but be impressed with that and all the pyrotechnics, and they just feel strongly about putting on a good show and putting on good fights for fans. And they're also very excited about introducing the U.S., which is, is not, I don't think, in tune with kickboxing as the rest of the world. So for all of those reasons, Glory 9 is going to be one hell of a show coming up Saturday.
Now, the show is going to be on Saturday. Right now, it's Monday. So what does your preparation for this card look like? Will you start writing down the cards, getting, all the background information on the fighters? Will you start practicing how to pronounce some of these names? Because some of the kickboxers that you've been announcing for these Glory shows, they got, a whole, story basically for a last name. They got such a long name, and some of these names, the way they're pronounced, don't look anything how they look on paper. So what's the preparation like for this event coming up on June 22nd?
Well, first of all, let me say I think I have a little bit of an advantage over some guys simply because of my background. I am a 30-plus year, so 3 decades of radio experience behind me that I still do on a part-time basis here in Salt Lake City. But I've done 4 Olympic Games, and in the Summer Games, my chosen sport is boxing. And so boxing is one of the few sports in the Summer Olympics that goes from opening ceremonies to closing ceremonies with medals being handed out on that day. And we have, I think, 2 3-hour sessions a day with a couple of hours in between, and you're doing nothing but international names and international fighters. So you get a pretty good workout doing that. But I'm a guy that likes to have all of my cards in place and have all of my research done before I ever get on the plane. And then if I have to, I can make adjustments when I get into the venue city. So tonight, matter of fact, John O'Regan sent me from Glory, sent some information on the fighters for us to look over, both the broadcast team and those of us that are going to be in-house. So I'll look over that tonight, and then tomorrow I'll put all my cards together, and we fly out Wednesday morning. We'll be in New York by about 2 or 3 o'clock Wednesday afternoon and get settled in. Thursday, we'll no doubt have production meetings. Friday, we have weigh-ins and press conferences in New York, and then Saturday is event day, and we fly home on Sunday.
Now, is this card going to be aired live on CBS Sports Network? Because I know the last couple events have been on tape delay. Is this going to be live since it is going to be in the U.S. and it is a U.S. channel?
My understanding is it's still going to be tape delayed, but I apologize. I don't know exactly what the broadcast schedule is for it.
I see.
It'll be this weekend. I just don't know exactly what time.
I see. Well, Tim, you touched a little bit on your background, but I sold you a little bit short in that intro. You're much more than a ring announcer. You're a voice talent. That's, your main profession. You've done, like you mentioned, radio, the ring announcing. You've done voiceovers. You've done a lot of television. You've done a lot in the world of voice talent. But what inspired you to pursue this career? Just curious.
Well, it's a crazy story. If you had asked me 30-plus years ago whether I'd be doing what I'm doing today, I would have told you were crazy. But when I was in high school, I grew up in a small town called Pocatello, Idaho, and there was a kid whose dad owned a clothing store in town that, because of his dad's connection and his advertising dollars that were going to the local radio station, KSEI, I think was the name of it. I could be wrong, but they actually put him on the air at a local radio station when he was still in high school, and we all thought that was pretty cool. So from that time on, that's really what I wanted to do, and I came down to Salt Lake City from Idaho and went to a broadcast school here that was a 9-month program, went back up to Idaho for my first couple of jobs, and then immediately got an opportunity to come back to Salt Lake. And, I mean, most people in the radio business don't get, that kind of a run, but I've had almost my entire career in one city and working for basically 3 radio stations here. And then through that, had friends that were in television and doing other things, and I got the opportunity to do a small MMA event that was broadcast locally called Ultimate Combat. And we did all the post-production of that show, and I did the play-by-play along with the ring announcing from my home studio. And then that led me to, and it goes on for a crazy story, but that led me to get an opportunity up in Portland, Oregon, working with Randy Couture and Matt Lindland and their sport fight program up there, which I still do a decade later. And I met Matt Lindland, who's been a big supporter of mine, and Shannon Knapp, who now heads up Invicta, of course. And she was in the loop on the International Fight League that was getting started, and so she dropped my name there and connected me with Stephen Quadros, and I met Keith Evans, who used to work for the UFC, and, it's just one thing after another. So I ended up doing all of the International Fight League work for about 2.5 years, and then continued my work with Sport Fight. And Keith Evans, who lives in Las Vegas, would call me on occasion for other things. And so when the opportunity came for World Series of Fighting, he made the call to me for that. and a production contact, Jim Gordon, who now is vice president in the Glory World Series, worked with me on the first World Series of Fighting show and brought me along for Glory. So, it's a crazy world. You just never know where the twists and turns are going to take you. And sometime in the middle of all of that, I started doing Olympic work because in 2002, the Winter Olympic Games were here in Salt Lake. So I was the Medals Plaza announcer every night for all of the medals that were presented for the games, and NBC hired me to do all of their bumpers and billboards for their cable stations, CNBC, MSNBC, and Bravo, and that led me to go to Athens for 2004, Torino for 2006, Beijing in 2008, and, again, I even pinch myself to say that all of this has happened.
Mm-hmm. And you do an excellent job ring announcing. I'm a very big fan of your work. When the IFL ended, you went back to doing some of the sport fight, the local shows in mixed martial arts. Did you ever have that moment where you thought to yourself, maybe I might not get another chance to call a major MMA organization? Did you ever have that time from that gap between IFL to Invicta?
Absolutely. These things are very tentative. You ask any of these fighters that wonder where their next contract is going to come from. And it's one of my real disappointments with the world of MMA, and this is just me speaking, not on behalf of anybody else, but I'm disappointed at how the UFC has gone out and purchased these other organizations, and in the instance of Pride, said that they were going to operate both organizations, and the intent was really to buy them, cherry pick a couple of athletes and shut it down. Mm-hmm. And that's happened time and time again with the WEC and Affliction and other shows. And, it lessens the opportunities for the athletes. They don't get the chance to work out and become stars in their own right. It lessens the opportunity for production people, and I think lessens the opportunity to grow the base of the sport and bring new fans on board. So, but it's a tentative situation. A lot of things have to fall into place, and that's why right now I feel so fortunate to be working with both Glory and World Series of Fighting, because they are both quality organizations with people behind the scenes that know what they're doing, not only in the sport but also in the crazy media world that we live in. And, they understand what it's like to, in the case of Ray Sefo, he's a fighter. Mm-hmm. He still wants to fight. He's got 7 fights to get to his 100 mark, and then he'll retire. He wants to do what's right for the athletes. And you just don't find that in the business these days. But Glory, everything's in place for them to be the best internationally. And I think in the few events that they put on, they've already established themselves to be at the very top of international kickboxing, and we just hope that the event in New York and their Road to Glory program that's been going on across the country really sparks an interest, and we find some other big stars here in the United States that also bring some big fans with them.
Mm-hmm. Now, Tim, what happened with Invicta? Because you were doing an excellent job for them. You called, I believe, the first 2 shows, and then all of a sudden Joe Martinez is in the cage for the 3rd show, and Tim Hughes is nowhere to be found. What happened there? Did Invicta leave you, or did you leave them to go to World Series of Fighting? What exactly happened there?
Well, let me just say right up front that Shannon Knapp was has always been one of my biggest supporters. I owe a lot to Shannon for giving me opportunities, and she's the one that called me in to do Invicta. My schedule was getting a little crazy, first of all, but also I'm not sure I was the right fit for what they were doing. And Joe Martinez is one of the best out there. I love Joe's work, and there's a reason why Joe has been doing the undercards for Jimmy at Showtime boxing events, and so I have no hard feelings there whatsoever. And the old saying that when one door closes, another door opens certainly came around for me when Invicta decided to move towards Joe. I immediately got the call of World Series of Fighting, and that opportunity last November has led me to Glory, and so I'll just keep walking through those doors as long as they're made available to me.
Mm-hmm. Now, Tim, you have a very unique style when you call the fighters, when you introduce them to the crowd. A lot of these, ring announcers out there just do the standard height, weight, where they're fighting out of, and then their nickname and name, or name and nickname, however they do it. But you do a very unique style where you actually tell us a story about the fighters. You will tell us, they're a wrestler, but they also have knockout power. You always give us a little bit more than just, they're a boxer and a wrestler, and here you go, here's the guy, blah, blah. But you'll give us more info on the guy. How did you develop this style when you call a fighter before the fight starts?
Well, I want to be careful what I say, because I don't want anything I say to come across as criticism of anybody's style. But having said that, obviously, ring announcers today all know who Michael Buffer is.
Right.
And everybody, I think, that is ring announcing today would love to be the next Michael Buffer. And so what they've done is pattern their delivery, their inflection, everything they do just like Michael Buffer. And I didn't want to be one of those guys who was just a rubber stamp in the business. And so I chose to take, I'm not as crazy in the cage or the ring as Bruce is, Bruce Buffer. He's really, over time, developed his style that's gotten a little more dynamic. But I wanted to be somewhere in the middle. I love Jimmy Lennon Jr., don't get me wrong, but I think there's a reason why he is known as a class guy. He is the classy Jimmy Lennon Jr. because he goes in and he stands very stout, very still, and delivers, in his own way, the introductions to fighters in a very traditional ring announcing way. So I wanted to be somewhere in the middle of that. I wanted to be somewhere, that puts a little pizzazz, as Bruce does, and maybe a little more energy than Jimmy does. And so, I sort of fit down the middle of that. Part of the information thing that you're talking about is through the Glory organization, there's a real need to educate the world on who these guys are. Not just because they're all kickboxers, obviously, when you get into the Glory program or, into the Glory events. But there's a need, especially in the United States, to educate new viewers, new fans on these guys' background and why you should care about who they are and how they got to be where they are today. And so you'll notice on the Glory introductions that there is, and by the way, there's significantly more done in the live event than you will actually see make the cutting, or ends up on the cutting room floor to make TV time constraints. But there's a real need to educate people and have them get to know who these guys are. So, yeah, we try to do a little bit of that.
Definitely. I enjoy the background story, and I think it adds a little bit more. Now,
well, here's an example of what Bas Rutten has talked to me about, and I really look up to Bas. I had the chance to work with him, obviously, in the International Fight League, and he has been almost lifelong friends with Shannon Knapp. So I've known him for probably 7 or 8 years now, and he always has a little pet peeve, and you heard him say it on this last show over the weekend, that all these ring announcers want to talk about how many knockouts a guy has. And sure, crowds love knockouts, and so do fighters. But he feels like, and I agree, it's important to also tell you that of a guy's 27 wins, 18 of those came by submission. So if you're watching and you're not familiar with both guys, I can tell you that this opponent in this corner has 6 of his 8 fights by knockout, and his opponent tonight has 13 of his 15 fights won by submission, and you immediately know that this guy's approach is going to be to take his opponent down and submit, and this guy's approach is going to be, obviously, to stand and bang. So not many guys talk about how many submissions a fighter has in their introductions, but I've started to work that in just based off of what Bas has been talking about.
In the past, you've done radio, voiceovers, video games, live TV, ring announcing. You've done a lot in the world of being a voice talent. If you only had to do one, if you could only do one thing, what would it be?
Well, radio's a love of mine, obviously, but radio is a lot like trying to stay employed in the fight business. You're in and out of work all of the time, and along the route, along the way with 30 years of experience, I lost a job twice. And in early 2001, I decided that I was going to build a home studio with the money that I had gathered from stock investment in one of the radio companies I was with. So I do radio part-time, and it's still a passion of mine. And by the way, when I do events on the road, I do my radio shows from my hotel on Saturday morning before an event on Saturday night or after an event on Friday night. So I'm still doing my radio work while I'm on the road, just via the internet with a new piece of technology that's out there. But I can tell you, if I could do nothing else, I would do live sporting events all day. Last week I had the opportunity to call or do stadium announcing for Major League Soccer in Real Salt Lake here at Rio Tinto Stadium. And I've done USA Rugby, and obviously the Olympic Games is a live event. And now I'm doing mixed martial arts and the Glory work with kickboxing. There's just something about the energy that you get back from the crowd, and not everybody's comfortable in that environment, but I'm really comfortable in that environment, and so that's really my passion. If I could do nothing but live event, I certainly would spend my time doing that.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about the experience so far with Glory, because you've been traveling all over the world, really. You went to England, you went to Turkey, you went to Italy, all over. I mean, usually you just did, when you're working with IFL and World Series of Fighting, you just do U.S., but now working for Glory, you're going all over the globe. Talk about the experience so far.
I love it. I mean, I can't tell you. It is the most... again, one of those things where you pinch yourself and say, okay, so you're going to pay me then to fly to the other side of the world, put me up in a nice hotel, feed me good food, let me sit ringside for this amazing production, and you're going to pay me to do this? Seriously. I mean, it's unbelievable, and the people behind the scenes, if you could see the resume of the production team that mans this event, it's like a who's who in Super Bowls and Olympics and you know, all kinds of other live events, NFL, NBA, you name it. And these people are on the road from one event to the next event to the next event. I don't know how often they actually get to go home. So it's a dream come true for me and a chance to go see these places in the world. Now, you have to understand, there's not much time to be a tourist when you're doing this. They'll fly you out on a Thursday, and in the case of Istanbul and Milan, well, in Tokyo for that matter, you don't arrive to the venue city, you're not in country until Thursday afternoon. So, and then your body clock is so messed up that you don't know what's up and what's down. So the objective is to stay awake until the locals go to bed, which sometimes is easier than others. Then you try to get a good night's sleep, get up on Friday, and you've got weigh-ins and press conferences and production meetings. You go back to bed, get up on Saturday, it's event day, you have rehearsals and production meetings and the event itself, and then after a late night, get back on the plane Sunday morning and fly home for anywhere from, 15 to 25 hours. So it's not for the faint of heart, but when you're one of only a handful of people that get those opportunities in the world, you certainly take stock in it.
Mm-hmm. Tim, obviously this weekend you're going to be at the Glory kickboxing event, but beyond that, what does your schedule look like? Because I believe that World Series of Fighting doesn't come back and do another show till August, so from June till August, what does your schedule look like?
I wish I could tell you. I don't know. And as a matter of fact, if you look on the website, gloryworldseries.com, there's no news about where Glory 10 might be. Right. And I've heard rumblings that I can't talk about. But so my next MMA date is coming up on August 10th in Ontario, and Ray Sefo is going to be on that card with Dave Huckabee, and Tyrone Spong is going to be on that card as well, and it should be a fantastic show as always. But, kind of fun on the 4th of July, I'm in my 5th year of producing the biggest fireworks show this side of the Mississippi up in Idaho Falls, Idaho, called the Melaleuca Freedom Celebration. And I write the script, put all the music together, voice it, and then it's my pleasure to go up there and see how 31 minutes of my production is actually choreographed to fireworks, and there are huge speaker systems along the Snake River, and there's 100,000 people that come out to watch it. So that's where I am most 4th of July, so I'll be doing that. after doing a full week of filling in on afternoon drive for news, weather, sports, and traffic on KSL News Radio here in Salt Lake.
Tim, real quick before I let you go, tell the people where they can follow you, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, website. Where can people go to keep up with everything you've got going on?
Well, the best place really is my website, which is just voicebahughes.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at voicebahughes. And I do have a Facebook page, although it's more of a personal page than a professional page. I have a professional page up there called Voice by Hughes, but I haven't really been pushing that all that much. It's pretty new, and we're in the process of doing some new things on the website. But voicebahughes.com, and then on Twitter at voicebahughes.
Tim, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's nice getting to know you.